No one knew much about Flannel Island, tucked away in the northern reaches of the Pacific. It sat shrouded in perpetual mist. Sailors and locals whisper stories about it, but none dared to set foot on its shores. The fog wrapped around it like a curtain, obscuring secrets that no one was brave enough to uncover. Some said the island was cursed, others claimed it was haunted. Those who visited rarely returned, and those who did were never the same. But something was calling out, faint whispers that brushed the edges of consciousness like the soft rustle of fabric in a darkened room. It was a siren song pulling in the lost, the curious and the desperate. No one knew who or what was on the island, but everyone knew the name Flannel Island. Leela Barrows wasn't the kind of person to believe in ghost stories. A documentary filmmaker, she prided herself on logic and reason. When she first heard about the disappearances associated with Flannel Island, she dismissed them as rumors designed to keep people away. She had built her career on debunking myths, and this one seemed ripe for the picking. In late autumn, she arrived at the nearest coastal town, a chilly, isolated place where everyone seemed to avoid eye contact. The air felt heavier there, thick with unspoken fear. The locals, when questioned, tightened their lips, their eyes darting to the horizon. But Leela found one man, Harris, an old fisherman, who reluctantly agreed to take her to the island. People don't come back from there, he muttered, his eyes never meeting hers, and when they do, they bring the island back with them. The trip across the water was cold and airy. The sea was calm, but the fog swallowed the boat whole, muffling the sound of the waves. Harris stayed silent, his knuckles white against the steering steel. The island emerged suddenly from the mist, dark, foreboding, with trees bending unnaturally, like they were trying to reach for the boat. When Leela stepped onto the shore, the ground felt soft, almost spongy, beneath her boots. The fog clung to her skin, its chills biting deep. She felt eyes on her, watchful, patient. Harry stayed in the boat, his face pale. "You got 2 hours," he called. "After that, I am gone." Flannel Island had a history, one that Leela unearthed through journals, letters, and newspaper clippings. She found in a long abandoned fishing cabin. The island was once the site of a small colony in the late 1800s. A group of religious outcasts who sought isolation. They built cabins, planted crops, and lived peacefully until one winter when they all vanished. The authorities who arrived found the colony deserted, doors hung open, meals left uneaten. The villagers' flannel garments, hence the island name, was scattered across the shore. The only clue was a journal from the town's preacher, Reverend Morse, describing how they felt a presence, a shroud creeping closer each night. The entries grew frantic, culminating in a final scrawled message. It wears the flannel of those it claims. Leela breathed frosted the air as she flipped through the journal, her fingers trembling. She felt a strange unease, as though the island's long buried history was crawling back to life. As the frog pressed in, she thought she saw shapes moving just out of sight, figures wrapped in shrouds of familiar fabric. Leela wandered deeper into the forest. The trees twisted into strange shapes, their branches tangled like claws. The deeper she ventured, the quieter it became. No birds, no wind, just silence. That's when she saw him, a figure standing far off the trail. His body was draped in flannel, a plaid pattern she recognized from old photographs of the lost colony. He didn't move, but she felt his eyes on her, following her every step. When she turned her flashlight towards him, he was gone, vanished into the fog. She felt a chill creep up her spine. She tried to shake it off, letting herself it was her mind playing tricks. But as she pressed on, she began to see the figure again and again, sometimes closer, sometimes further away, but always there, waiting. She realized with growing horror that the flannel he wore looked like the shirts the missing people had worn. It wasn't until she heard the whisper, a voice like a rustic of fabric, calling her name, that she ran. Leela made it back to the shore just as Harris was revving the boat's engine. He stared at her with wide, fearful eyes. "You saw them, didn't you?" he asked, voice trembling. "I don't know what I saw," she whispered, staring back at the fog-choked forest. The whispers were louder now, echoing across the water. As the boat pulled away, she felt the island's pull, like invisible threads tugging at her mind. She shivered and turned her back to the shore. It took hours to return to the mainland, and by then the sun was setting. Leela felt a strange warmth on her back as she unloaded her equipment. When she turned, she froze. Draped across her backpack was a flannel shirt, worn and faded, its pattern identical to the ones she had seen on the island. "That's impossible," she whispered, yanking it off. But when she touched it, she felt something cold, something that had clung to her skin the entire boat ride back. Leela tried to resume her life, editing her footage and piecing together her findings. But the whispers didn't stop. In the middle of the night, she would wake up to the sound of rustling fabric, the touch of cold fingers brushing her cheek. When she looked outside, she saw figures standing in the fog, their forms draped in flannels. She became obsessed with the footage, rewinding and slowing down the frames. What she saw horrified her. In every shot, even when she was alone, there were figures, sometimes hidden in the trees, sometimes just behind her shoulder, and the flannel they wore seemed to move, shifting as if alive. Her friends noticed the change. She grew distant, her eyes sunken and haunted. One day she disappeared from her apartment, leaving only her journal and a pile of flannel shirts stacked nearly on her bed. Months later, a search party combed the island looking for any sign of Leela. They found her camera covered in a fine layer of mist. Its battery drained, but when they reviewed the footage, they saw something impossible. Leela, her eyes wide, whispers into the lens. It wants to be remembered. It wears what we leave behind. The search party left the island, shrunken and unnerved. Weeks later, one of the volunteers vanished. His flannel jacket was found on the beach, soaked with salt water. Flannel Island still sits shrouded in mist, its secrets guarded by those who have become part of it. The whispers continue, calling out for more to join the lost. All it takes is a touch of fabric, and the island's curse spreads, one thread at a time. I hope you will like this video, so kindly like, subscribe and share my channel. I will meet you in the next video with next topic. Until then, take care and goodbye.